Hello and welcome to KnightCast. My name is Jonathan Reyes, Knights of Columbus Senior Vice President for Communications and Strategic Partnerships, and I'll be your host from here at the St. John Paul II National Shrine in Washington, D.C. Here on KnightCast, we hope to help you step into the breach as men, as Catholics, and as Knights. KnightCast is free and available to everyone, so you can find this episode and all episodes on demand anytime by visiting kfc.org/KnightCast. You can also find clips of KnightCast on Knights of Columbus social media channels, including YouTube, so it's easier to watch and share than ever. In this episode, we'll be talking to the Supreme Knight about his recent trip to Rome and opportunity to greet Pope Francis. We'll also be sitting down to catch up with Cardinal Timothy Dolan, discussing the new Knights of Columbus film Mother Teresa, No Greater Love with filmmaker Jim Wahlberg, taking a closer look at a vital new pro-life initiative, and much more. Thank you for joining us. Last month, the new Knights of Columbus documentary, Mother Teresa, No Greater Love, enjoyed 3 premiere screenings in Rome, including at the prestigious Filmoteca Vaticana inside the Vatican. While in Rome for the premiere, Supreme Knight Patrick Kelly had the opportunity to greet Pope Francis following his general audience and present him with a copy of the documentary. Let's take a look at the premiere of this incredible film.
It's a great honor for us to be here at the premiere of Mother Teresa, No Greater Love, to be given the opportunity to tell the story of who Mother Teresa was, the incredible work she did, and to hopefully introduce her to a new generation. There's so many ways that Mother Teresa can inspire us to live our faith in a more profound way.
This is really a premiere week in Rome, so we're showing the film here at the North American College, at the Filmoteca, which is the Vatican's theater, and then we're having a special showing for the Missionaries of Charity on Thursday morning.
Here's a woman who absolutely transformed the 20th century and into the 21st and has left this massive legacy that's touching the whole world. We had to bring that forward. This is a time when we need her message, which is really quite simply that at the heart of reality is love, and love can transform the universe.
Mother Teresa, No Greater Love was absolutely fantastic. It was moving. As a performer even, it made me think, how do I be a sharper pencil in the hand of God?
I would say overwhelming with the way that the presentation was made. It was very well done. I find it beautiful to be able to recall this. It was inspiration for everyone.
And that's what Mother Teresa's life was about, showing the merciful face of God.
It was a very good moment to have this documentary because it's 25 years ago since she died. So hopefully this film will just remind people who she was. And secondly, that the legacy continues.
Film on Mother Teresa. Thank you for your beautiful letter.
The grace that I hope that this film would bring, that people would open their hearts really to a God who is love and mercy, and who sees everybody with the eyes of mercy.
I was impressed in a good way because it is really well done. I was 7 years old when she died, and now I saw that in nowadays, Mother is alive in each sister. The fire of Jesus' love will be enkindled in the hearts of young people. Yes, because it is so powerful, this movie.
I'm now joined by Supreme Knight Patrick Kelly to discuss this powerful new film and his trip to Rome. Supreme Knight, great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Jonathan. It's great to be here with you.
So we have a lot of things to talk about, and so I'm just going to start chronologically. The last Supreme Convention was your first Supreme Convention in person with everybody together. It was a dynamic, exciting event. Looking back a couple of weeks on it, what are your reflections about it?
You know, I'm still really on a high about the Supreme Convention because I thought it was great. It was great to be back in person, and I think everyone felt that. You know, they felt the absence of coming together in person. So that was great. But, you know, the Supreme Convention, it had to do a few things. In my mind, it had to do a few things, and we accomplished those. So we rolled out our ASAP program, our aid and support after pregnancy. That was successful. We did a very successful tribute to Carl Anderson. We weren't able to do that during COVID, and we needed to do that. I think that went very well. And then also Ukraine. I mean, we really needed to talk about Ukraine and everything that the order has done in Ukraine. And I think we accomplished all of those things. And I think everyone had a really great time.
So Ukraine was a very powerful moment in your address when you were talking about Ukraine, because there were some tributes made and some people were acknowledged at that point.
Yeah, we had the state deputy of Ukraine, Yuri Maletsky, was there. And we acknowledged him in my speech, and he got a standing ovation. But then later at the state's dinner, we gave him the St. Michael Award for all that he has done to shore up the Knights in Ukraine. He's really been instrumental in the relief work that we've done. So we did that. We paid tribute to Yuri Maletsky. We recognized Archbishop Mokshinsky, who was there in person. So it was really important to do. You know, I mentioned the St. Michael Award, but also Yuri Maletsky gave me a Ukrainian flag that the Ukrainian military in the field had signed as a gift. And that was a special moment for me.
So you mentioned this new program, Aid and Support After Pregnancy. Now, I'm sure there are some viewers who maybe don't know what that is. Most of our brothers do. But maybe you could say what the program is, why it's important right now, and maybe even comment on how it's going.
This program is crucial to our pro-life efforts. And what it is we've always been there for the vulnerable mother and her unborn child, but this is really a concrete way that our councils can do this. And what we're doing is our councils are partnering with pro-life pregnancy centers and pledging what? Aid and support. And we from Supreme are coming in and assisting them with that as well. And it builds on the relationship that so many of our councils have with pro-life pregnancy centers through the ultrasound program. I mean, we have put in close to 1,600 ultrasounds. So we have these relationships. And now what ASAP does is it takes that to a whole new level where we are really giving aid and support right where it needs to go to the vulnerable mother and helping her with her child. So I'm very excited about the program. We put a $5 million goal for the next year on the program, and we're well on our way to do that. If our Knights or others want to participate, they should go to kfc.org/ASAP, and they can find out all they need to do to help our pregnancy centers.
So this is an extremely important moment for the pro-life movement, and another pro-life hero we've just made a movie about. Our movie, Mother Teresa, No Greater Love, has come out. This took you to Rome. We've had a number of premieres on this end. Tell us about this movie and how it's being received.
You know, it's been great. We've been on the road a bit with the film. We premiered it in Rome, and then, which was a great premiere. We had actually 3 showings of the film in Rome, and we premiered it in Washington, D.C., which was very, very special, and then in New York City. We had a New York City premiere of it, and in each one of these venues, the film was just really, really, everyone that came enjoyed it. We had missionaries of charity at each of the showings, and I think it really touched the audiences. And I think what we're seeing is people are really anticipating that this film, when it comes out in theaters on October 3rd and 4th, I think they're going to be wanting to go see it and get their friends and their families, their brother Knights and their councils to go see this film.
What are your hopes for the movie? I mean, it seems to me it's appropriate for the Knights to have done this. We're honored, we're privileged to do it. You've said that many times, but one of our core principles is charity. I just think it fits us. And is there something special? Did you feel an affinity to the movie as a Knight of Columbus?
Yeah, I did feel that affinity. And it's interesting too, because that affinity goes back 3 decades. So we've been friends with the Missionaries of Charity, but it really goes back to the friendship that one of my predecessors, Virgil Decken, had with Mother Teresa. And over the years, that took very tangible forms. The Knights would help the missionaries with printing their prayer books.
We would help them with printing their constitutions, which every missionary gets a copy of their order's constitutions. But also, and this really moved me, when the missionaries go to a new place and they start a new home, often the Knights of Columbus would provide a tabernacle for their home. And because one thing that comes out in the film is you see that Mother was so devoted to the Eucharist. That was the requirement for starting a missionary of charity home, is they needed to have Jesus with them in their home. So there has been this friendship, and it's just a very symbiotic relationship. We're very, very different. We have very, very different vocations, but the charity is the common thread through it all, I think.
Mr. Kelly, thank you as always for your leadership, and thanks for taking time here on KnightCast.
Yeah, Jonathan, thank you very much.
Our next guest needs no introduction, the Archbishop of New York, Cardinal Timothy Dolan. Cardinal Dolan has done his share of Knights of Columbus events lately. He was the keynote speaker during the States Dinner at the Supreme Convention. Shortly after that, he was at St. Joseph's Seminary in Yonkers, New York, for the feast day of Blessed Michael McGivney. He was then present at not one, but two screenings of the new Knights of Columbus Mother Teresa film, first at the North American College in Rome, and then at the Sheen Center in New York City. And if that isn't enough, he'll soon be addressing our college knights at the College Council's conference. Your Eminence, thank you for all your work on behalf of the Knights, and thank you for being here on KnightCast.
Jonathan, it's a joy to be with you. I appreciate the invitation, and it's always good to be with Brother Knights, you bet.
Hey, you've been doing a lot for us lately, and I want to talk about some of those things. So you spoke at our national convention, which you know is our big gathering, all of our leadership, thousands of Knights together, and you addressed us at a keynote, which was a lot of fun, but also a serious topic. It was on religious liberty, and I wonder if you could just tell me why that's so important that we hear that message right now.
Well, thanks for asking. I was honored to address the Supreme Convention. I had the honor about a decade ago, and I was grateful that they asked me back. Usually I hope that once they ask me to speak, they're never going to ask me again, but apparently that didn't work this time. I know they asked me because Dolly Parton turned him down in Nashville, so they asked if I would come on. So I did my Garth Brooks impersonation. I love the Knights, so just to be there is always uplifting for me. But when the Supreme Knight, Patrick Kelly, said, "You speak about what you want," and I said, "Darn it, I'm going to speak about religious freedom." Why? Well, first of all, I happen to be chair of the Bishops' Committee on Religious Freedom, so there was kind of a self-serving agenda there. But secondly, you got to remember, Jonathan and Brother Knights, that the Knights of Columbus have been on the vanguard of protecting religious freedom from the beginning. If you think about it, one of the reasons that Blessed Father Michael McGivney founded the Knights was because really the civil rights and certainly the religious sensitivities of the Catholics at the time, who were at that time heavily Irish immigrants, were not being respected in a country that pledged to build itself upon religious freedom as the first of the foundational freedoms mentioned in the Constitution. So the Irish were looked down upon. There were unfair hiring practices. There was freedom of association was somewhat limited. They were very poor. They did not have access to some of the other socially medicinal programs that were that were going on at the time. And Father McGivney said, I need to really gather my people and give them a sense of dignity and cohesion, and so that together they can advance in this American culture and protect their own religious values while showing again, as Blessed Father McGivney always encouraged, that we can be as loyally, responsibly patriotic Americans as anybody else. And pretty much, especially, what would it have been, 30 years or so after the foundation of the Knights were on the forefront, for instance, of protecting religious freedom of Catholics in Mexico, who were under tremendous persecution. During the era of fascism, the Knights again were on the vanguard of protecting religious freedom throughout the world. That really became muscular after the Second World War with the communist hegemony, where the Knights of Columbus once again were on the front lines of protecting the freedom of our co-religionists across the world, particularly in Central and Eastern Europe. I rejoice, for instance, that now the Knights of Columbus are so young and growing and strong in Poland, for instance, because that would have been one of the countries where we had said, we're with you here. So this was kind of a down-home kitchen table topic, if you ask me, for the Knights of Columbus. And my major point, Jonathan, was this. It was kind of philosophical. It was I asked them, I said, why do you think that totalitarian bullies across the globe, the first right that they attack is religious freedom? Because a tyrant, a bully, it's all, Jonathan, as I brought out in the talk, it's all because of that kind of punchy word, totalitarianism. They want total control. They want absolute control. And if they sense that their people have any allegiance or any loyalty to anyone outside of the state, they are ticked off and they want to get rid of them. That's totalitarianism. Where in the United States, we believe that it's religious freedom that gives rise to all those other fundamental protections of liberty. In a way, it's a backhanded compliment to us in the United States when totalitarian tyrants beyond would first attack religious liberty. They know what our founders knew, that religious liberty gives rise to a sense that our freedoms come not from some government. Our freedoms come from the God in whom we have the freedom to worship and publicly express our religion. They know that a vibrant internal practice of the faith in all its diversity is always going to be good for democracy. Well, they don't want democracy, all right? They don't want freedom. They want to be in charge. That was my major thrust. Now, I also said, by the way, I didn't spend a lot of time on it because we've talked about that enough. I said, even that's being chipped away here in the United States, as we see some in political authority who resent the role of religion in the public square. That's another matter.
You know, speaking of bringing our values to the public square, we recently made this movie about Mother Teresa, No Greater Love. You got to see it in Rome. It was nice to see you there.
I saw it in Rome. I've seen it through 5 bags of popcorn. I saw it once in Rome, and last night we had it at the Fulton J. Sheen Center here in New York, the Broadway debut.
Yeah, and tell me, what's the importance of, one, her life, and why now? Why a movie now? Because you're a historian, and I think a lot of people are forgetting history. Some people could look at Mother Teresa and just say, this is just history. Why is it relevant now? But her life speaks to the moment.
You know the great saying, those who are ignorant about their history are bound to repeat its mistakes, right? By the way, we historians say that the spinoff of that is historians are bound to quote that statement because it kind of defends the importance of history. But you're right, a historical amnesia is very detrimental. They like the enemies of religion, and their name is Legion, like to abolish the memory, all right, of all things, and especially religion. So to keep the memory of St. Teresa of Calcutta alive is a value in itself. Secondly, I thought part of the genius of the film, No Greater Love, was that it showed Mother Teresa of Calcutta not only historically, but as today and the future. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. The work of Jesus that was brilliantly entered into by Saint Teresa of Calcutta is yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So the documentary brilliantly also documented the role of her missionaries of charity who continue the work today. Jonathan, you've seen it. I think if you took a time clock, half the documentary would have been historical on Mother Teresa. The other half is, guess what, folks? It's still going on. Hallelujah.
Last question for you, Your Eminence. You have generously offered to speak to our college leadership coming up.
I'm looking forward to that.
To a bunch of our young men.
You going to be there?
I will be there. So what are you going to say? What do you say to young Catholic men? They're not necessarily seminarians. Some of them we hope are, but just young Catholic men right now in this country who are trying to follow Christ. What's your message to them?
Well, one of the things I'd say is coraggio. That's another Italian word. Courage, stick with it, fortitude here. One thing I sense, because we got a lot of young Catholic men and women here in the Archdiocese of New York, and one of the things I sense when I meet with them and listen to them is that they're often tempted to feel that they're all alone in their convictions, their beliefs. If you are looking for an experience of being with other people who share the very values that you do, and if you're looking for an antidote to some of this isolationism that you candidly tell me you're experiencing, boy, take a look at the Knights of Columbus. Because there you're going to get brothers who pray. You're going to get brothers who treasure their Catholic faith. You're going to get brothers who feel that service to others is very important. You're going to get brothers who like to have a good time. And that's part of the church. That's part of being Catholic. So give the Knights of Columbus a second look.
Thank you, Your Eminence. Thanks for the time. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you,
for the
Jonathan.
Knights. Great to see you.
Glad somebody's interested in what I have to say. See you in New Haven in a month or so, okay?
Sounds great. Thank you, Your Eminence. It's been 25 years since the death of one of the spiritual giants of the 20th century, Mother Teresa of Calcutta. The new Knights of Columbus documentary, Mother Teresa, No Greater Love, is a soaring tribute to this spiritual icon, who's a guidepost for all who seek hope in our turbulent times. It will play in U.S. theaters on Monday, October 3rd and Tuesday, October 4th, and you can learn more as well as buy tickets at motherteresamovie.com. Here's a preview of this inspiring documentary on an inspiring life in Christ.
I wanted to be a missionary, to go out and give the life of Christ to the people in the missionary countries.
She was a small, tiny, bent woman, but she had a commanding presence. You could feel an aura about her. An aura not of power, an aura of simplicity and holiness.
She made a remarkable vow to God, never to refuse him anything or to give him whatever he would ask.
She was strong. She was firm. She was a tough cookie. She was tough in Jesus. She wanted to love until it hurts.
She hated publicity. She suffered the celebrity. But she accepted it if it was going to help the poor.
When she smiled with the lines in her face, it was almost like an exclamation mark of joy.
For Mother Teresa, there were no expendable people. Everyone has dignity and worth because everyone is made in the image of God.
Lord, make me a channel of your peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love, that where there is despair, I may bring hope, that where there are shadows, I may bring light.
I'm now joined by filmmaker and Catholic speaker Jim Wahlberg, who is featured in this new film. Jim, thanks for being here. Thanks for being on this movie, and thanks for taking the time.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
You know, you're a tough man to introduce because you're doing so many things. And one of the things that you and I have had a chance to speak a bit lately is we've been talking about the Mother Teresa film, but I just wondered if you'd say something. You're the executive director of the Mark Wahlberg Youth Foundation. What does that do?
So the Mark Wahlberg Youth Foundation was founded just over 20 years ago. And it started, we were approached by a priest who was looking for some support, financial support for rebuilding the roof, the air conditioning, the heating system for their community building. And it was, the way he brought it to us was, this is the only safe place for kids to go after it gets dark in this area. And so we did a premiere of the Planet of the Apes. It was our first charity event. And we raised a significant amount of money, enough to do all the work. And then soon after, my brother and I sat down and we just kind of looked at each other and said, what are we going to do now? And so over the course of just over 20 years, we've raised several $1 million. We've supported many different programs.
Fantastic. So, Jim, we're here to talk about this new movie, Mother Teresa, No Greater Love. You're in it. I want to first talk about, maybe you could share with us a bit about your own experience in Mother Teresa. You're featured in the movie. It's a deeply moving moment, especially as it relates to your conversion. I wonder if you could just say to our viewers a little bit about what she means to you and what that event was like.
So Mother Teresa means everything to me. And it's amazing because as we were leading up to the event of Mother Teresa coming into the state prison in Massachusetts that I was in, and when Father Jim Freitas, who's in heaven now, told me that she was coming and how excited he was, I had no idea who she was, And in my own defense, if this is a defense, I probably didn't know who the president of the United States was either at that time, because I was just really, really in rough shape. I was in prison. I had been drinking and doing drugs and living in the streets for a number of years, and I was really in bad shape. And then the day came, and I got to tell you that witnessing her humility, I was blessed because I worked in the chapel. I was blessed to be part of the procession. And so as we processed in, there was, the Cardinal was there, and, he had his, when the Cardinal shows up, there's a lot of, it's a big deal. And so he had a special chair and he had his special hat and and as he went up onto the stage, which was the altar in the gymnasium at this prison, he sort of beckoned Mother Teresa to come, and that he had a special spot for her. And she humbly declined. She humbly declined. This very important person, she humbly declined. And instead, she chose to stay on her knees with the inmates and her sisters. And that moment touched me. And, because I think it's kind of human nature. We all want to shine. Right? We all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. We all want to be important, I guess. And it was important for her that we knew that we were just as important as anybody else in the room. And so she chose to be with us. And there were some dangerous men in that room. And it was at that moment that I sort of made eye contact with her. And it was in that moment that, for lack of a better explanation, I really felt as though I was looking at the face of God. We all, when I pray, I always pray. When I pray, allow me to be a reflection of your love, right? And here was that reflection. This was what I was looking at, and in that, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to have the clarity to know it was that moment that changed my life, right? It was that moment that the process began. And then from there, when she did finally go up onto the stage, and the words that she said were incredible. The words that she said, nobody ever told me that there was a loving God. Nobody ever told me that Jesus died for me specifically. When I tell the story, it sometimes sounds a little crazy to people, but there was an instant where it felt to me like everybody else was gone, and it was just her and I, that she was just talking to me. She was telling me that Jesus died for me, and that I was more than the crimes that I committed, and I was more than the prison number they had assigned to me, that I was a child of God. If you can imagine, just for a moment, having Saint Mother Teresa say those words to you, and to you only, right? In hindsight, I have this strong sense that God sent her for me, right? I can't think about it any other way, because, not only did my life start to head in a different direction, but it headed in a direction, and I hope that it's still traveling in a direction of service, right? Of trying to serve God and trying to serve those that are less fortunate and trying to be a reflection of his love. And I'm certainly imperfect. I'm certainly a sinner without a doubt. And I got a long, long way to go. But I feel like that day changed everything for me.
Your whole life changes from a moment when you encounter Mother Teresa live in prison. Part of what this movie is trying to do, and we talked about this in Washington, D.C., is to bring that kind of encounter to the audience. Can a film do this? And does this film do it? Can it possibly be a way of really meeting her and lead to conversion?
There's a reason why the film business is so big, right? And so profitable, and so that, and people, we live in a world that is very visual, and people love to be transformed. They like to be, they don't want to just hear their story or read their story. They want to see the actual story. They want to see the person that you're talking about. And, we live in a time that the world is just a really, really so complex and so difficult. And there's so many angry people in the world, and this sort of two sides. There's really no middle, right? There's two sides, right? There's believers and non-believers. There's faithful and non-faithful, right? And people have become aggressively and almost violently opposed to the other side. And here's this little woman who, she sort of transcended all of that, right? She was fearless, in the way she treated people who were sick, who were supposedly contagiously sick, right? She was fearless, right? She trusted in God. And she was also fearless in her beliefs and fearless enough to stand up in front of the leaders of the world and tell them that the real poverty it's not about the money, right? The real poverty in our world and in our countries is the countries that legalize abortion, right? That, they have no respect for life or the dignity of life. And, when I see that speech in this film, when I see that, it moves me to places that I haven't been moved in a long time, since I was in her presence, right? And when I see her caring for the sick, caring for the poor, the way, just to her tenderness, right? And her gentleness and really her fearlessness, right? Touching them. How important it was for her to touch them with her hands and for her to look in their eyes. And when you learn about the fact that, we live in a world where we're all full of distractions, right? And here's this woman who is, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, who met countless presidents and world leaders. And here she is with the meek and broken. And she had the gift for them to realize that they were the most important person in the world to her in that moment. She was not distracted or deterred from her attention and her love, and her focus was on them. I see such a reflection of that in her sisters. And we were blessed to have so many of them in DC with us. And, I had sort of two perspectives, right? I had when I was sitting and watching the film, I'm looking at the screen, and below the screen is all these little white heads, right? And they're all so small, right? And then we did the Q&A, And now I'm up and I'm looking at them and I'm looking in their eyes and I'm looking in their faces. And all I see is love. Not from one, but from every one of them, right? I see peace and joy in their eyes. I see lots of smiles. I see so much kindness. And it's a blessing. It's a blessing what Mother had started, right? In following Saint Therese in her little way. And it's beautiful. And I absolutely believe this film is transformative. I believe this will be the film on Mother Teresa. And I think that we're going to introduce a whole new generation of people to this amazing, wonderful saint.
Jim, thanks for taking the time today. Thanks for your reflections. Thanks for being in this film. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. And God bless you. And God bless the Knights of Columbus, man. You guys are doing amazing work. And I'm just so grateful for you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Once again, you can see Mother Teresa, No Greater Love in theaters across the U.S. on Monday, October 3rd and Tuesday, October 4th. And you can buy tickets at motherteresamovie.com. The Knights of Columbus recently launched a major new initiative to strengthen its support for pregnancy resource centers and maternity homes, the Aid and Support After Pregnancy, or ASAP program. Pregnancy resource centers are central to the pro-life cause, so let's take a look at the Knights' support of this important work.
We are a pregnancy assistance center. This is our annual 5K. Not only do Knights of Columbus give to us monetarily, they're going to be manning the routes at different corners, giving out water, directing people. They've always been a support for this ministry.
Knights being a family-oriented organization and also a community organization, anything we can do to better the lives of those in need, it's an opportunity to really put your faith into action.
We were asked if we would provide some support in terms of meals for the parenting programs at the Shady Grove Pregnancy Center.
The Knights of Columbus bring the food, and that's always such a wonderful thing because it's always set, it's always ready to go. It's important that women and men know that there's people supporting them.
It's just a wonderful opportunity for the Knights and all my brothers to be able to participate in this program.
All the women that have come to our center, we can't help them choose life without the support we receive. The Knights have a very special place in my heart and always have, so we're so thankful.
Mother Filius stands for Mother and Child. Mother Filius is going to be a maternity home with 10 bedrooms in Colorado Springs that is going to support the mother and the child.
The Knights in particular have promoted it throughout town. They've had speakers come. They're just some of our best supporters for life.
The goal was $10,000, and I know we've surpassed that.
Being a Knight to me is a way to visibly stand out in the world and say, we're Catholics, so we believe in God and this way of life, and hopefully draw others to our way of life.
It's absolutely amazing to see a great group of Catholics come together in support of something that is just life-giving.
Today, we gathered all the gifts that have been given by a couple of different parishes to this pregnancy care center in support of the women that come here needing help.
I just got so much support. I'm very grateful for them. I appreciate them so much. They are always here. And I think I speak for every mom that comes here. That is like a family.
For the Knights of Columbus, our path is clear. Our support is for life.
I'm now joined by our very own Tim Sakosha, Knights of Columbus Vice President of Public Policy, and we're going to talk about the state of the pro-life cause and the importance of our new ASAP program. Tim, great to have you on the show again. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Good to be here.
Great. So last time we talked was right around the time of the Dobbs decision. A lot of things have happened since then. I wonder if maybe you could just start by sort of getting us caught up on kinds of developments? What's the landscape out there right now in the pro-life cause?
Sure. So I think, as everyone knows by now, the Supreme Court's decision in Dobbs essentially opens up the ability to legislate and regulate the question of abortion. And so what we're seeing now, Jonathan, is the 50 states, DC, various governments now looking at what they want to do with abortion in their states. And so some states have decided to make abortion laws more permissive. Others have decided to put limits in place to protect unborn children. In the majority opinion, Justice Samuel Alito actually said, that states, the federal government, have this opportunity now to look at the laws to protect children from feeling pain, from protecting the medical profession from doing horrific abortion procedures. And so by doing that, states are now looking at limiting abortion when a child can feel pain. And actually, just recently, the federal government, the U.S. Congress, introduced legislation to do just that as well. And so we're seeing these opportunities to protect life, but we're also seeing challenges, right? Because there are those that want to have abortion on demand up to the moment of pregnancy, to birth. And so because of that, we also have an opportunity and a need to speak about the truth about life. And I think that's a unique and perfect opportunity for our brother Knights to be out there, to continue marching in their state marches, the national march this January here in Washington, and to be witnesses for life that we've been for over half a century.
One of the big challenges in this moment, I suppose it covers a number of issues, but this issue in particular is the way that information gets used, misused, represented, et cetera. Do you have any advice for the brothers in terms of how do I actually really get my mind around what's going on, step out of some of the noise and get a clear picture of things around the pro-life issue?
Yeah, there is a lot of noise, especially as we look at states considering ballot initiatives recently in Kansas, places like Michigan, Kentucky. And so really what we always suggest our brother Knights to do is a couple of things. First and foremost, go to your state Catholic conference. The bishop or bishops in your state, they're looking at these. These are pro-life matters. They affect unborn children. They affect mothers. And so the bishops have taken a look at that, and their staffs know the right information, and they can help provide it. And they can also help form your conscience if you have that opportunity to vote or to even reach out to your elected officials to speak about your pro-life views. The other way is, and what we've been doing for the last several months, is we have what we call our Faithful Citizenship newsletter. And Brother Knights can sign up online, and you've probably gotten an email about it, to sign up and to receive a newsletter that's talking a little bit about what we're seeing here in Washington, and opportunities for Brother Knights to engage on issues like life, religious liberty, and other matters that they may have of interest. In fact, our last couple of newsletters have focused on the Dobbs decision, trying to break through the noise and provide Brother Knights with exactly the information they need to know what the court actually decided, what they said, and what they didn't say.
It's not too early to be talking about the next March for Life, too. And you're obviously greatly involved in that as chairman of the board. What's coming in the March for Life? What should brothers know now, and what should they keep their eyes out for as they prepare for, hopefully, a trip to Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, well, we'll be back. You're right. We'll be back here in Washington in this January to March. And I think we're going to have a much more joyous March and an opportunity to celebrate the overturn of Roe. But, Jonathan, and I know you know this, but, the march was founded after Roe, and it was founded in response to Roe, but it still does more. It has more to do even now that Roe has fallen. There is the opportunity in the states, opportunities in the federal government to continue to rally our fellow pro-lifers, our brother Knights, people from their parishes and their communities that come on buses. It's an opportunity to celebrate, but it's also an opportunity to prepare for what's coming in the states next year as state legislatures convene. I'm sure we'll see a lot more laws that concern abortion, whether they be pro-life laws or laws that would make abortion law more permissive in the given states. And so we're going to have a lot to do, and the National March is a great rally point for that in January to prepare for the year. I think it'll be nice weather. We always prepare for January for the cold, but we've been pretty good so far.
Thank you again to Tim Sakosha for sharing his insights with us. You can learn more about the ASAP program by visiting kfc.org/ASAP. Each month, our Supreme Chaplain, Archbishop Laurie, presents a reflection and challenge for Knights to live during that month. The Supreme Chaplain's monthly challenge is a great way for Knights to put perseverance into practice and grow in faith and fraternity. You can always find each month's challenge at kfc.org/monthly challenge. And here's Archbishop Laurie to issue his monthly challenge for October.
My brother knights, for my Supreme Chaplain's monthly challenge for the month of October, the scripture passage comes from the Gospel reading for the Mass on Sunday, October the 2nd. The apostles said to the Lord, "Increase our faith." Increase our faith. Think about that for a moment. Even the apostles who walked with Jesus, lived with Jesus, heard him teach and saw him perform miracles, had their struggles with faith. Wouldn't faith be even more difficult for us who have not seen Jesus when he walked the earth? Fortunately, Christ is truly present to us and for us in the Eucharist, and we can hear his words in Scripture. If we wish to increase our faith, let us spend time with Christ in the Eucharist, and let us listen to him as he speaks to us through the Scriptures. For the month of October, I challenge you to spend some time each week reading and meditating on the Gospels in the presence of the Blessed Sacrament. Second, I challenge you to participate in the Faith in Action Icon program. As you undertake this monthly challenge, I ask you to reflect. When it comes to faith, do you ever find yourself just going through the motions? How can spending time with Christ in the Eucharist or reading his words in Scripture increase your faith? What are some practices you can undertake to grow in faith in Christ? God bless you as you undertake this monthly challenge. Vivat Jesus.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of KnightCast. Once again, you can find this episode and all episodes on demand at kfc.org/KnightCast. And you can also find clips of KnightCast on Knights of Columbus social media channels. So please share KnightCast with Brother Knights and others and encourage them to check it out. Also, if you have thoughts, suggestions, or comments on KnightCast, we'd love to hear them. Just send an email to knightcast@kfc.org. Thanks again for watching, and we hope you can join us for the next episode of KnightCast. Vivat Jesu.